All right, so we're continuing our ratio problems videos, and this is going to be ratio problems part 2. Here's an example for you of a ratio problem. The directions on a package of lemonade say to mix 2 scoops of powder with 8 ounces of water. Angela needs enough powder for 40 ounces of water. How many scoops of the powder will she need? So we're comparing two different things, which helps us know that this is going to be a ratio problem. And then when you're solving ratio problems, you have 4 steps. All right, our very first step should be we're going to make sure we write our words first. We're going to figure out what we're comparing, what 2 things, and we're going to write them in words first. Our second step is when we're adding our amounts to our ratio, we have to remember that order matters. And then after we turn that ratio into a division problem, the next step we have to do is we make sure on that division problem that we label. Very important. And then our last step is we're going to form a proportion, which is an equivalent ratio. So the proportion that we make from the problem, and then we're going to have, the ratio we make from the problem, and then we set up an equivalent ratio to solve it. All right, so in this case, we're going to figure out first what 2 things are we comparing. It says mix 2 scoops of powder with 8 ounces of water. So our 2 things we're comparing in words would be we're comparing scoops of the powder. So you can put the word scoops or you can put the word powder. I usually like to do the word that comes right after the number so I don't get confused. So we're comparing scoops to ounces for this one. Now we're going to add our amounts, remembering that order matters. So scoops would be 2, ounces would be 8, like that. Now our next step is we're going to turn that into a division problem. Get this. Oh, there you go. Turn this into a division problem. Once we do this, we have to make sure that we label so we remember which number goes with what word. So the 2 goes with scoops, so I'll put an S there. And the 8 goes with ounces, so I'll put an O there. Right? And then our last part of this is we're going to make a proportion. I need an equivalent ratio. And then my next number, I just need one more number, and then I'm going to solve for my missing number. So my number that I'm going to have is 40 ounces. Angela needs enough powder for 40 ounces of water. So where should our 40 go? Is it going to be on the top or on the bottom? In this case, it's going to be on bottom because that's where ounces are. So this is when I want you to be clear that we don't want to miss this step of labeling because then we might put the 40 in the wrong spot. So we're going to say 40 is ounces, so it's going to go down here. And then it's asking for powder, scoops of powder, so our unknown should be at the top. Now we're going to solve these like we normally do. Arrow to your X, same direction. We're going to look for a rule. Do you see a rule here to get from 8 to 40? That rule is going to be times 5. Do the same thing up here. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 scoops. All right, so we have a recipe. Anytime you see a recipe, it's almost always going to be a proportion, a ratio problem. So we got a recipe for fruit salad. You got 4 bananas, 3 apples, 6 pears, and 10 strawberries. Dice off fruit and mix together. And then our question says, Sadie is using the fruit salad recipe and she wants to use 30 strawberries. how many bananas does she need? So we're comparing two things. Your job is to figure out what two things are we comparing? What two amounts are we comparing? In this case, you're comparing strawberries and bananas. So we're going to do words first. Strawberries to bananas. Right? For this next part, we have to remember that order matters. So we need the number that goes with strawberries first, the number that goes with bananas next. We're going to get these numbers for our original ratio from the recipe. So what number goes with strawberries? Strawberries is 10, bananas is 4. So you would say the ratio of strawberries to bananas in this recipe is 10 to 4. Good. Our next step is going to be to make this ratio into a division problem. So you would say 10 to 4. And then what do we have to remember to do next? The next thing that's important is we have to remember to label. That 10 goes with strawberries. So over here to the side, you're going to put an S. Be careful to leave some space here because some people write an S that looks like a 5 and that can make a big mistake. So just make sure you leave a little space. So that's the S, and then the 4 is bananas. Same thing here. A B can kind of look like a 6. So leave your space there so you know. Then we're going to make what next? We're going to make a proportion by making an equivalent ratio. And then we get our last number from our problem. And it says she wants to use 30 strawberries. So 30 is our number. And then we have to decide, in this problem, should 30 be on the top or on the bottom? In this case, since it's a strawberry, strawberries are on top. We're going to put 30 here. And then we're solving for bananas, which is this at the bottom. So our variable, what we're solving for, should be here. Then we're going to say arrow to your X, same direction. Next step. Next step is to look for a rule. So we're going to say, how do you get from 10 to 30? Multiply by 3. Multiply by 3 down here. X equals 4 times 3 is 12. In this case, we're solving for bananas.